You ever feel so stuck in life that you think maybe someone's playing a cosmic joke on you or punishing you, or this is karma payback for all the things you've done in this and all past lives? Okay. This is natural. This is part of the human process and the human journey. And what happens is our instinct in those situations when things are not working out, when we're going through a rough patch, is we get into victim mode, right? Victim mentality, what nowadays is often called that victim frequency. And here's the problem with that is the moment that we accept and embody that victim frequency, that victim mentality, we're implicitly accepting our part in a cosmic play. And the cosmos, the universe, loves narratives, it loves stories. And in the movie of your life, if you're accepting that role, then the script that the universe hands you is going to give you plenty of opportunities to play that out again and again and again. And this makes it hard because your nervous system has been trained to take on this role. Your ego has been trained to take on this role. It's become part of your personality. And so it's so hard to break out of that loop. And there's this thing that we get from friends and from loved ones, when we're going through a rough patch or especially after. And it's this phrase like everything happens for a reason, and sometimes that's infuriating. Sometimes we do see the wisdom in it, maybe when enough time has passed and, we look back and you're like, oh yeah, actually, I really did dodge a bullet with that one. Or yeah, that worked out for the best. But what if I could give you a tool, an exercise, a thought experiment, so that even while you're in the midst of that rough moment, you could see the lesson and embrace it? With full presence, you could lean into that lesson. As much suffering as there may be, you can lean into that lesson and essentially move through it faster, get more wisdom from it, and switch that victim frequency into protagonist frequency. Okay. Now, this is interesting. You may have heard me talk about purpose before, and a lot of my videos and content, I use this metaphor that purpose is kind of like, when we take that piece of driftwood that's just been floating around the ocean at the whims of the wind and the weather and the waves with really no volition or control. That's the opposite of purpose. And when we take that piece of driftwood and we carve it into a sailboat and we attach a sail, then we have a direction we want to go in. That same energy that was moving the driftwood around in whatever which way, so the wind and the waves and the weather, we can't change or control the wind or the waves or the weather. But when we've designed that sailboat, what we can do is guide, use that energy, leverage that energy to move in the direction we want. This is purpose. And this, sometimes I get asked, so, okay, I love the metaphor, Ben, but what does that look like in action? This right here, what I'm about to share, this is what that looks like in action. Okay. Now, shifting out of the victim mentality is really important. And I love Carl Jung. I love the ideas that he's brought into our consciousness, the tools that he's brought into play for us in this personal growth, personal evolution. And I'm going to share a quote. One of Jung's students was talking about how Jung framed this shift from victim to protagonist consciousness. And he didn't use those terms, but I want you to listen to this, okay? So Jung, this is one of Jung's students, Jung introduced the idea of looking for the meaning, or perhaps we could say the purpose, and he's talking about in difficult circumstances. That is, rather than ask why something happened, what caused it, Jung asked, what did it happen for? What did it happen for? And the way I'm going to shift that is say, what is this happening for? Because I believe that if we can manage our nervous system to stay with the moment, we can actually do this work in the moment, even as that wave is passing over and through us. Okay. And I call this exercise the cosmic lesson plan, Okay. And it's, that old phrase, everything happens for a reason, is kind of a vague, generalized, I think, unhelpful way of approaching this. But what does that everything happens for a reason look like when we really dig in and embrace it and lean in? It looks like this. And this comes from my background as a teacher, right? So as a teacher, one of the things that you do is you design lesson plans. And the lesson plans are designed and engineered to take the student from A to B through a learning process. And guess what? By its very nature, learning is painful. Have you ever tried to teach a third or a fourth grader long division? It hurts. It hurts. Trust me. And so the learning process is painful by its very nature. If it doesn't, quote unquote, hurt, then technically it's not learning. I mean, we're literally rewiring our synapses, right? So there's like some growth that happens. And so the learning process is always painful. And so as a teacher, one of the marks of a skillful teacher is you find ways to guide students through that process where they're engaged in the story of it. They see themselves as an actor. They're using their free will. They're using their own curiosity to kind of guide themselves through this process. So here's what I've done with this exercise is I've taken this idea of being in a moment of suffering, in a tough moment in your life where things are not going how you think they should or you think they're supposed to. And you say, okay, wait a second. The cosmic teacher wrote a lesson plan for me, right? Now, so some people are comfortable with the word God, and you can use that too. I like to use cosmic teacher because it's a little bit more universal, right? So there you are in that moment of suffering, okay? And, what's our instinct? As I said before, it's to get into that victim frequency, right? And play that role. Okay, here we go again. See, I told you. This is how life is, right? And it's hard to break that cycle. But with an exercise like this, what you do is you intentionally just try to break that cycle and you say, okay, all right, yes, this is not good. I'm feeling not good. I'm suffering. This is not how I want things to be going right now. But you know what? I know why. Because the cosmic teacher wrote a lesson plan for me. And instead of looking back on this 2 years from now and say, everything happens for a reason, I can lean in right now and say like, I'm learning. This hurts, but this is how I gain wisdom. This is how I evolve. This is how I move forward. Now, the key here is you have to get really specific and concrete about the lesson you're learning. And this is the difference between this exercise and this vague, everything happens for a reason. So here's what you do. Okay. You think about the situation you're in, right? Like you just really settle into it. Stop running from it. Just accept it. Let those feelings come up, right? Let the emotions be there. Hold space for those emotions, that resistance that's you're normally repressing or suppressing. Let it come up. Let it be there. Get to the heart of it. You have to do this from the heart of the situation. Okay. So then put yourself in the framework of the cosmic teacher. Okay, this lesson designer who custom created these circumstances for you to learn something. Then, okay, what is the lesson that the cosmic teacher wants me to learn through this situation, through this moment? Okay, if you can get to the point, even if it hurts, even if you feel a little resentment about it, and it's like, but, wouldn't there be other ways to learn this? You're leaning in. So you're just accepting it. I'm a student. I'm in the middle of my lesson. It hurts, but I know that the goal of this lesson is for me to learn X, okay? And even if you don't know for sure, the next step is really important. You try to articulate it, okay? I even have a little formula for you, okay? And what you do is you shift. In order to shift from victim energy to protagonist energy, there's a step in between, which is gratitude, okay? I have this phrase, this template for you right up here. Take a look. It's this. I am so grateful that I stayed aware and willing to grow when, and then you insert a description of your current situation, of the circumstances that you're working through, because I learned, and then insert the lesson that you think is going to be the result of this whole process. Even if you're not feeling it in this moment, try to think about what that could be and make your best guess. And then write that out. Write it out 3 times. Write it out 10 times. Try to get into that energy of gratitude. The whole point here is you got to get out of victim. You got to get out of victim. If you believe that you're being unfairly, unjustly punished by the universe, you'll never get the full lesson from this situation. You'll just be shuffled from role to role where you're the victim. And I think if you're like me, you've had enough of that. You're ready to shift. If you're watching this video, you're definitely ready to shift, right? So let me give you an example. Maybe it's a little bit mundane, but I remember a year or so ago, I was in a situation where my morning routine was really disrupted, right? I couldn't do my morning meditation. I couldn't eat what I like to eat. I couldn't do what I like to do. I couldn't get enough sleep, blah, 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 right? I know, first world problems, especially in the context of the global situation. But it was something that was getting under my skin and really aggravating me, and it was shifting me into victim consciousness. So I was like, nah, this ain't gonna work. I gotta practice what I preach all the time. So I went through this exercise, and here's the conclusion I came up with. Here's how I used that template to write out my lesson objective. And it goes like this. I am so grateful that I stayed aware and willing to grow when my morning routine was disrupted last week, because I learned to soften and be present with the people who needed my support. Okay? And maybe the first time I said it or the second time I said it, it wasn't clicking in, but guess what? I stayed with it, and eventually I could feel that shift. This is something you can actually learn to feel. It's almost like the clicks of a little radio dial. And you're like, I don't have to stay on the victim station. I can shift this. Okay. And it's a beautiful process. So I invite you to explore this. I have a workbook that lays this out for you. You can use it as many times as you want for as many situations as you want. I'll link to it in the comments and the description. And go through this process, lean in, see if you can shift into protagonist energy, and let me know how it goes. All right, good luck. Thanks so much.